So stand anywhere.
I will stand right here. All right, welcome everyone for such an exciting event, and feel free to snap a photo of this up here so you can get the app for dissertation defense. I don't know if this is like the first in the world dissertation defense with its very own app and 360-degree live stream, but we're just going to say it is because that's super awesome. So excited to introduce Brad, who is going to share what a project he's been working on for quite some time now, and it's been really fun to see how it has progressed over the time. Our plan for today is Brad will start off with his presentation, and then we will do about a maximum of 60 minutes of questions. So the committee will start off with some questions, and we'll open it up to all of you and really think of those hardcore drilling questions that you can come up with to build on ours. But now we'll have fun and hopefully have a conversation around this really exciting and important topic. And then after that, we will politely ask you to step out of the room so we can have conversations about Brad. We will invite him back in, chat with him for a bit, and then invite you all back. So that is the plan for the day. Ready to rock and roll?
I am ready to rock and roll. Hi everyone. Thank you very much, Tori. I'd like to introduce my committee first, Dr. Tori Trust, Dr. Kate Hudson, and Dr. Gabriella Weaver. Their bios are available in the app, so please download it for you here and for you YouTubers as well. These folks have been fantastic guides and mentors along the way. All of my family and friends who are here today know that I sing their praises along this journey of educational research. So again, my name is Brad Wheeler. I'm currently a doctoral candidate in the College of Education's Math, Science, and Learning Technologies program. And I am going to be talking to you today about a really exciting study. So before we get started, anyone who needs any information about the apps or the live stream, please feel free to use those links there. So I wanted to thank especially the folks who came here today, my folks, Jim and Jan Wheeler, my husband Paul. Thank you guys so much for your wonderful support along the way. Dan Walker over there, I also want to thank, who's been a fantastic classroom support colleague and friend along this journey as well, so thank you. And then friends, great friends, fellow colleagues, educational scholars, thank you so much for joining me today. And all those folks in the virtual world, thanks for joining in and tuning in today too. It's very exciting to have you here. One thing just to let you guys know, we're going to hold questions until the end of this presentation. At the end, as Tori mentioned, we'll take questions from the committee and then also open it up to a larger discourse as well. One of the things I think is really exciting about doing the dissertation defense in this room is that these rooms are really cool. And so I wanted to take this opportunity to make it as authentic as possible. So one of the things I love to do in these spaces is this. And you're all going to have to get up and do my favorite icebreaker digital style. Please notice the eyes are once in favor of digital. So folks, this is how I would start an opportunity here. To break the ice, for those of you who are not familiar with this activity, you need a QR code reader. Somebody here has one. And if you have a QR code reader, just go ahead and scan that QR code, and I would ask everyone to get up with their phones and see what that QR code says. You actually have to get up. Active learning, active participation. So if you don't have a QR code reader, you can download one by visiting your app store, or make a friend. Do you have a QR code reader? I will. Do you want to use my phone?
Do you guys want to drop them down here? I got one.
You got one? Great. All right. You're on your 236 right here.
This is me?
No, right here. This,
Oh.
right here.
Uh-huh.
If you grab a seat, just grab a name tag.
Okay. I'm not part of the committee.
Yeah, there are tables.
Okay, sure.
Yeah.
Where are the name tags?
They're probably both there.
Okay, so that's the instructions.
So I can stay for an hour or so?
Yeah, there we go. Drop in, drop out.
How you been? You guys moved close?
Yeah, it's great.
So, what am I missed? How many?
All right, everyone, if you're done, please return to your seats. Just getting started. The party's after. All right, so this is one of my favorite activities to do at a space like this. Why? Because not everybody comes in with a phone equipped to do this, but you make friends who quickly have a phone that can do it. You engage with each other, you get to know the people here. It's very authentic. Look at how many desks and chairs are in our way to meet each other. This is so different than a traditional classroom. It lets you get right up, engage with the media, engage with each other. That's exactly what these classrooms do. So that's what I really, really like about it. So, who thinks they have the best selfie? Raise your hand. I'm going with my mom because she raised her hand the fastest. You get to come up here.
Oh no.
Oh, yeah. If you think it's a, oh, you took a selfie. Oh, Paul took the selfie. All right. Can I see the selfie?
Yeah, yeah, that was a good.
This is the good selfie.
Yeah.
Oh, it's great.
Was I blinking?
So one of the great things about this is that you can share these things out. So there's a good photo. So one of the great things that I like about these classrooms is it makes it really easy to gather the information from students and share it out. So I just took Paul's cell phone, put it on the document camera, shared it out, and we can have a larger conversation about it. But we're gonna wait on that. Thank you so much. All right, selfie winners. Thank you guys. Theirs was better? The next thing about these classrooms, everyone who knows me knows that I make airline analogies about these classrooms. Welcome aboard. We're departing at 2 o'clock. Hopefully we'll have an early arrival to PhD Airport at 5 o'clock. These classrooms are equipped with so much in-flight technology. And I also just want to remind you that there are 2 exits in this classroom, and like any good airline, there's no food service. So folks, that's just basically an overview. These are really fun classrooms. They do have a lot of the amenities that an in-flight entertainment system would even have. You'll see them all in front of you, the laptops, the buttons in front of you. In fact, it's so authentic that if you need me during this flight, you can press this call button right here. All right, diving in a little bit deeper. Today I'm going to talk to you about a research study that I've been conducting for the last couple of years in spaces just like this. team-based learning or active learning classrooms as they're known in the literature. I've spent the last couple of years dedicating myself to faculty development work, working with instructors, solving educational technology problems, working at the intersection of faculty development and education technology to help instructors and faculty members use this technology in a more meaningful and authentic way to their teaching with their students. This study that I'm going to describe today took place over the course of an academic semester with 13 participants who all came into these active learning classrooms to discuss with me and to engage with me around the challenges, the barriers, and the adoption factors around the classroom technology that they use every day. So today, I'm going to provide you with an overview of some of the literature that I've written about, some of the problems in the literature, and how my study actually addressed some of those challenges. And by the end, hopefully we'll have a little bit clearer insights about how these classrooms can transform both student learning and the field of faculty development. The literature. There is a lot of literature written about active learning classrooms. Much of that literature focuses on the impact of how these classroom spaces and the education technology in these spaces can improve student learning. There is much less literature discussing the challenges and the navigational aspects of how faculty utilize the classroom technology in these spaces. Across the country, classrooms like this are known by various names. Many can trace their roots to the scale-up classrooms at North Carolina State. They're also known as TILE or TEAL classrooms, Transform, Interact, Learn, Engage is one acronym, and Technology-Enhanced Active Learning. Regardless of the names and the many, many names that continue to be ascribed to these types of spaces, they all typically feature similar classroom amenities. They feature often round tables with movable chairs, whiteboards for students, and LCD screens that can be used by students or instructors. Active learning classrooms are completely opposite of what a traditional classroom is like. They are meant to provide multiple representations of learning experiences. They're meant to mimic the complexity of the real world, and they provide opportunities for each other and students and instructors alike to co-construct knowledge, just as we did when we co-constructed a selfie during our introduction. And they truly facilitate collaborative learning and other active learning strategies that help students engage with material and each other. Regarding education technology, the literature highly covers a lot of challenges and barriers that are known to impact instructors and K-12 educators who utilize technology in their teaching. Barriers are largely defined as first-order and second-order barriers. First-order barriers are the extrinsic barriers, such as lack of support, lack of financial support with technology, and a lack of time. These are things that instructors experience when adopting technology that are often extrinsic to them. Likewise, there are second-order barriers known in the literature. These include a faculty member's beliefs about technology, their attitudes, their confidence with technology, and whether or not they perceive a tool to be useful or not. And then the tech resistance factor. Adoption factors are also similar, but not well linked in the literature compared to the barriers. Adoption factors often revolve around the advantages a tool has over something else and its perceived usefulness. So, when faculty come into a place like this after leaving a traditional lecture hall, they're suddenly confronted with a completely new active learning classroom learning space, as highlighted in green. Divorced are they from the desks and the chairs, and quickly they must meet the learners and their fellow colleagues in the space, much like I'm doing right now. In addition to entering a new space like this, they drastically have to alter their pedagogy. traditional lecturing in a place like this, much like I'm doing right now, does not last very long or go over very well with students in places like this. So they must transition what they are doing to be able to take advantage of a learning environment like this. Simultaneously, you've exponentially increased the amount of education technology available in the classroom. 3 laptops per table. What do we have? 11 TV screens in here. Monitors, extra monitors, and a whole smorgasbord of technology here. I have some friends who teach. How much technology is in your typical classroom?
I don't know, like a 10th, 12th of what's in here.
I put you on the spot, sorry, but I sort of knew what the answer was going to be. A traditional lecture hall often has a small cabinet, a projector, and maybe, if you're lucky, a cord. Look at this. Totally different. So when faculty come in here, there are many, many challenges that they face with the learning space, their teaching transition, and the educational technology. This is what happens when a faculty member comes in here. They have to pivot everything that they do. Everything has to change. The pedagogical pivot, the educational technology pivot, and the learning space pivot. This is a very, very, very big ask of instructors when they've already designed a course, operated a course, and have to actually do that in a new space. So, where does that bring us? Well, it brought me to a lot of questions. Having supported faculty transitioning their teaching to student-centered spaces like this, having watched instructors struggle with the course design, the assignment design, the lesson planning design, and the grading that occurs in a place like this, I often was left with many questions. In particular, I came up with 3 that related to this research study today, and specifically how instructors, when they came in here, were using technology. So the 3 questions: how and for what purpose do faculty actually use all this stuff in the classroom? When they come in here, how do they adopt the technology or experience the barriers to the technology that are already implicit to their teaching? And finally, perhaps my favorite part of this research study, how does a faculty development intervention program actually impact how the instructors use technology? So let's take this a step further. Bring your problems, your barriers, your challenges to what you're doing, and let's see if we can move you a little bit more forward. These are the 3 primary research questions that guided my study. In order to guide the study, I had to employ a theoretical framework and a methodological framework. After a lot of time and discussion with my committee, a few false starts, some things that didn't fit so well, I ended up taking experiential learning theory and employing action research methodology. Cole pioneered experiential learning theory in 1984 and called it the process whereby knowledge is created through the transformation of experience. Almost analogous to this is a methodological approach called action research, which seeks to unfreeze structures, change them, and then freeze them back into place. When I read this, I knew this was the type of activity I wanted to do with instructors, teaching in spaces like this. I wanted them to have experiences with the technology, good, bad, challenging, or otherwise, and then improve where they were at. This framework, particularly experiential learning, is composed of 4 discrete phases. The first phase is called the concrete experience. The second phase is a reflective observation. Third phase is when the individual conceptualizes abstractly the things that they've observed and experienced. And then the 4th phase is when they actively experiment with this new knowledge. There are a lot of benefits to putting these 2 aspects together. First, this is very natural for faculty. This mirrors a practitioner's work, just like a faculty developer or an educational technologist would do. It empowers, by using this cycle, it empowers both the researcher and the participant it's customized to the actual needs of the participant, and it's participative, such that it's not one-directional. So, taking this a step further, I looked at 5 active learning classrooms, team-based learning classrooms, highlighted here. These are actually just 2 views of the same thing. Classroom 1, classroom 1, classroom 2 and 2, 3 and 3, 4 and 4, 5 and 5. What you'll notice is the podium centrally located and the position that I sat for my classroom observations noted here, and various classroom features, including the capacity and the technology equipment already installed in the space. And then the technology. These are the tools, the 25 tools that are built into the space as defined by the actual purchasing order that I got my hands on when this place was designed in 2014. These are the tools. You can read the fine print, but it's basically all that's around you and all that's up here, some of which is in the ceiling and some of which is tucked into little spaces at your table. These are the tools that I investigated. I also asked instructors, when I worked with them, to talk about tools that they brought, known in the literature as BYOD, bring your own device, a major phenomenon that's occurring across higher education. Most students today at a Research One institution have access to at least a laptop, probably a mobile phone, if not a tablet as well. Campus infrastructure teams are working tirelessly to increase the bandwidth to meet the needs of these ever-increasing devices that students are looking to bring to campus into their classroom as well. So the study was designed to incorporate questions and opportunities to learn about those devices that aren't built in here as well. For example, something like this, our 360 camera. BYOD, I brought it myself. So the methods, how does this study actually work? Well, I utilized 3 instruments: observations, surveys, and consultations. And I repeated these instruments twice over the course of a semester. So during the semester, first half of the semester, I observed faculty in these classroom spaces. Then I surveyed them about their technology use, the challenges that they were facing. And then I held a faculty development consultation with them. Based on their observations and the survey data, we engaged with the technology in this space in a one-on-one way, using the experiential learning theory model and action research methods, and we played with the technology. Then, during the second half of the semester, I repeated those again: observation, survey, consultation. That is the method I followed for the faculty development intervention program and the research. So the participants. There were about 35 participants identified as potential folks who could actually register for my study. I yielded 13. All 13 participants completed all 6 of those survey instruments. All 13 completed all 6 survey instruments, which meant I saw, surveyed, and consulted with a lot of instructors who persisted throughout the semester. I'm very proud of the fact that the data came in like that. It was a very, very holistic and powerful lens to know that the instructors were actually seeing this study through. The other great thing about the participants, and what's super unique about these 5 classrooms in this building, is that they're open to any department, any discipline. They are not proprietary spaces housed for some college or some program. That gave me a really exciting opportunity to see how the classroom technology was used by instructors with very, very different pedagogical goals. So, what happened was I ended up with a bunch of faculty from a bunch of different disciplines who stayed with me for a semester talking about this classroom technology and what it's like to teach in here. I got a lot of data. Oh, did I get a lot of data? Lots and lots of data. In fact, I was really fortunate. I even videotaped the data recording. I actually videotaped the consultations in here. This was one of the major aspects to making sure my data was clean. I did a pilot study in here. I talked with faculty. They talked about this, that, those, that other thing. When I ended up reading the qualitative transcripts, I had no idea what this, that, these, and those were. However, when I videotaped faculty consultations, I knew exactly what that was, and what that was, and what that thing is. And that was incredibly helpful. It also made the data much richer and much more helpful for future research and publications. So I took all this data and I went through a process, a methodological process, a data analysis process as a researcher that followed several phases, 5 phases. This is Morrone and Clark's thematic analysis guide. Basically, this is how you digest large amounts of data. If you would like more details, it's written about in my dissertation. I spent a solid summer, if not a lot longer, going through this data analysis process. I'm very good at it. I started at a young age. Pay no attention to the picture of me. Pay attention to what's behind me. I like to organize things. I like to throw things out. I like to categorize things. So I will ask you now to follow my yellow lines that you see here to my next slide. This is called my qualitative data analysis factory. It must be said like that. That's how I want it cited, with the actual audio clip. This is where I took all of my survey data, matched it to participants, matched it to their observations, and placed it into a program called NVivo, a qualitative data analysis program. I have the transcripts, I have the video, I put headphones on, and I listened and watched the video in tandem with the transcript. I copied those lines that were important into codes following Morrone and Clark's thematic analysis guide. So things that resonated with a theme ended up in these little nodes in NVivo. Simultaneously, as I'm listening, watching, and coding, I spent a lot of time creating what are called Frazee memos. Each participant received a Frazee memo by instrument, observation, interview, consultation, and then as a cohort for all 13 participants, I kept a simultaneous general note about their observations, their interviews, and their consultations, surveys and consultations. This process was probably my favorite process. Anyone who knows me knows I love multiple monitors, and if I can put extra monitors around me, I always will. So this process was great. Very, very, very cathartic, I guess I would put it. So this is how I analyzed the data in accordance with Morrone and Clark's thematic analysis guide. I had some themes that I was looking for, and I had some themes that emerged, grounded codes. Themes that I looked for were identified before. Those barriers, those adoption factors I found. I also coded everything by IT tool. I can run a query right now about how many people touch that map or use this. So I ran it by that as well. And then I found some rich generative codes that will show up in some of my other results that we'll talk about soon. Data analysis was probably my favorite part. Took a long time though, lots of time. Highly recommend videotaping. So, after going through this process for a very long time, I had to answer one of my research questions. How and for what purpose do faculty use technology in the classroom? What's going on in here, basically? So I had to combine those instruments and that data to be able to come up with a rich narrative about that. The first thing I looked at were the actual self-reports from the instructors about what's important, what's not important, and what they're unsure about. The important tools, these are the technology tools that facilitate presentation and flow. Just what I'm doing right now. Actually, the tools I'm using right now were the most important tools. Using a laptop, projecting through these TVs, by using this wonderful control right in the middle, right here. What's not important? Faculty said, mobile phones aren't really important to me. That DVD player under there isn't important to me. I know it plays every region around the world's special DVDs that most DVD players can't play, but it's not important to them. And the Benchmark 3000 scoring system, yeah, not important. In fact, it's so not important I can't even find the one in here. This is a piece of technology equipment that was found not to be important. However, there were several tools that folks were unsure about. the Crestron handheld display right here. This is like a maverick tool. This always shocks instructors. That other tool I showed you before, this call button, people were pretty unsure about this. And the table laptop connectors right here. Faculty were pretty unsure about these as well. It's a pretty interesting conundrum to wonder why they weren't sure about it as well. Tools like the whiteboard cameras right here, the table microphones, which are right here. Hi, you can hear me now. And tablets, Echo 360, the lecture capture, as well as the call buttons, tended to have some variation around them. When I did some thematic analysis, this is what I found. Overall, instructors were using tools that were around broadcast. This microphone that I'm proudly wearing, their personal laptop. Audio and video was occasionally played, and instructors were heavily utilizing the LCD TVs. In fact, this is a little homage to one of my participants who used to like to play this song. Womp womp. Technical difficulties. Oh well. Anyway, there's a song there. It's not going to play. But I embedded it because it was cool. Yeah, so instructors played some short videos, broadcast some audio and video to kind of welcome students in, much like I had done. They used their microphones, they used their laptops, and they projected to the TVs. That's really the major finding of how instructors were using the technology in this space. Then there was this whole variable I found called the non-instructor-centered technology use. This is what happens a little bit later in the class, when students started to open up their devices, started to put something on the TV. An instructor would say, solve this problem, and students would start writing on the whiteboard. So they were using some TVs, some whiteboards, and some of their own tabletop laptops that they brought themselves or that were built in as the class progressed. Hold on, this is my moment. I have to think. This is carefully orchestrated. There's one tool that I want to show that instructors used in a major way. And that is this. The Microsoft Surface. As you can see, what's powerful about this device is what you see on my screen right now is wirelessly being broadcast across the classroom. Just like this. In fact, it's so cool, Gabriella has one right there. This is a major innovation tool. Wireless projection with a tablet. This was a finding that was so significant, instructors continuously adopted it and talked about it. Why? Because it let them do exactly what I'm doing right now. Regina, can you solve this problem? Two plus 2 is equal to 4, right? Well, this went over like a lead brick. Anyway, you can write on it, and it shows up there. Sorry, you get the idea. I had it. I'll round up and say I got it. 2 plus 2 is equal to 4. What instructors did was they went from table to table with their tablet, and they actually what's called digitally inked. I'm going to try one more time just for my own sake. Anyway, it worked for many instructors, and what they were able to do was actually take the notes and the challenges that different groups of students had and digest them and process them in one space. It was like a digital whiteboard, and it was a fantastic tool that I think 5 of my participants adopted and talked about. It's one of the reasons why I got this device now. I thought it was so cool, I had to have one myself. Finally, there was a third thing that was happening in the classrooms. And that's the concept of device-facilitated participation. These were tools that were not frequently used by instructors or students, but that kind of went back and forth between the two. Eye clickers, which are built into the classroom here, allow students to actually respond to questions that are presented within PowerPoint slides. They can be graded or ungraded. 3 participants utilized these different tools, these eye clickers, to actually gauge feedback. One instructor used it to guide the direction of a lecture, like a choose your own adventure game. Another used it simply for attendance, and another used it for individual and team-related quizzes. iPads were another tool that was used for students. The College of Nursing decided to employ them across the campus, or across their college. And instructors in this space used them to record students engaging in nursing simulations and to review that feedback together. And 2 participants utilized cell phones to capture digital data on the whiteboards for themselves and encourage their students to do the same by utilizing the photograph feature after problem solving or other engineering type science problem sets were done around the classroom on the whiteboards. So that's what's happening in spaces like this. The other question I had was what technology adoption factors and barriers were experienced in spaces like this? Well, there were several things that came up. These were the main ones that came up. Time, ease of use of technology equipment, the classroom support or the institution's support, peer support, which is particularly interesting, and bring your own device. What I found through working in this space was something unique that I hadn't found in the literature before. And that was that the adoption factor and the barrier were actually dynamically linked. It didn't so much happen to be a discrete factor, but rather the direction or the vantage point that you had for looking at it. And I have a couple of examples. Time. None of us have enough of it, because I'm tight. Time is a barrier. Instructors always wanted more time to teach and to plan their lessons. That was a barrier. However, they often adopted technologies that gave them some time-saving opportunities. Tablets as a digital whiteboard, like I just showed you. Online peer feedback, utilizing these table laptops, were an adoption factor directly linked to the barrier of lack of time. Another example, instructors frequently struggled to meet all of their instructional activities within the allotted time. Pulling up students' laptops. Hey, Stacy, what table number are you? You are A9. Let me pull up your laptop. Hypothetically. I'm not going to do that now. Which cable are you plugged into? Tell me some more. Oh, what is it again? I think your plug's plugged in the wrong way. Oh, time waster. However, if Stacy has something over here, either on her screen, Stacy, why don't you look yourself up. Come on. Instead of actually pulling it up through the interface, you can just push these wall buttons right here. So adopting wall buttons of, yeah, you're on screen, that's why I put you up there.
Can I?
You can sit. Thank you so much. Gosh, I'm really calling out a lot of people today, aren't I? So, a lack of time occurring from the challenges of the configuration of the room vectored through this device was mitigated by an adoption of an alternative tool, the wall buttons. Another factor, let me put this back to all screens. So things like LCD screens and whiteboards were really easy and familiar for instructors to use. But using them with all of the different tools here was something that was not always as easy. Connecting with the laptops, like I mentioned, made it very difficult to utilize the TV screens. So students often did not do that, which caused a barrier around the ease of use in the classroom space. Another example is the bring your own device phenomenon. A lot of instructors were dissatisfied with the equipment in here. There's no windows. Just Mac, my friends. Actually, this room we're good. Right, Dan? Both ways? Yes. This room we're good. Not all rooms are like that. So some instructors were very dissatisfied, which meant that they instructed students to bring in their own devices. So a barrier of this built-in equipment, caused them to actually encourage students to bring in their own devices. Institutional support is a great variable I'm happy to say was not a challenge at this university or in these spaces. Faculty frequently reported that institutional support was reliable and accessible if it happened between the hours of 9 and 4. And if you were in a classroom that had mobile service. We have that up here. Other classrooms don't. That said, many instructors reported meeting with classroom technology support and having a fantastic rapport and support system about learning the classroom technology. One adoption factor that I found particularly interesting emerged during my observation protocol. I added a component to observe the class before it started. I wanted to know what instructors were doing before they actually had to perform in a space like this. And what I found astounded me. Instructors from different disciplines, sometimes the same discipline, would talk with the other instructor at the pass-off here. And they learned little nuggets or nibbles of great techniques in teaching with technology. I couldn't believe it. One instructor learned how to pick team tables, from another instructor who said, I have this 10-sided die right here. You should use it. Pick one of the 10 tables in here, just roll it. She was astounded and loved it. The other aspect was this thing, this Microsoft Surface tablet. I know it's a Lenovo ThinkPad, but I'm going to pretend it's a Surface Book today. This was picked up by multiple instructors who learned about it and saw this really cool device from other instructors between classes. It was a really exciting opportunity to see how faculty development was happening between faculty, between the classes, without me even being really an intervener, but just reminding them of the links of what I had heard or seen just prior. It was a fantastic moment. So peer support really stood out to me as something that happened as an adoption factor to overcome some of the challenges that they had. And finally, I want to talk about my third research question. And I'll keep these pretty brief. How does a faculty development intervention program impact technology adoption? What happens when you work with instructors to actually adjust what's happening? Well, I have 3 different case studies, and I'm going to zip through these in the interest of time. Chandler here had some confusion over the podium equipment. He wasn't really sure how this device here was different than this device. And then when he figured out that he had it backwards, he said, what's with all these A and B screens that I see here? Is there something I should be doing? Well, through that concrete experience, the reflective observation about it, and thinking about it a bit, he said, gosh, what should I do? So we talked about how the different team configurations, A tables, B tables, the different displays could connect multiple laptops, like I'm doing right now, simultaneously. He came back in our next consultation and said, I love it. I now connect multiple devices, and I ask my students to report out. Thanks for telling me that. Fantastic opportunity to engage those action research methods with experiential learning. Alexis. Alexis had a really fun, vibrant class that included a lot of media. She was using this document camera to project a lot of things. And she realized, gosh, now that we're talking about it, I could have my students print media now and project it out to the class. Well, we took it one step further. And not only were you projecting just something like this out to the class, as a performer, she wanted to condition her students to be able to perform. And very simply, with one felt swoop, we can transition this there we go into a broadcast device, has an accelerometer in it. This was really exciting for her to be able to give her students a presence, some sort of understanding of what it would be like as a broadcast tool. So she conceptualized what that might look like based on a prior experience with printing out media that she wanted to show. That's kind of a fun opportunity. Tyson. Tyson experimented with a different technology, and really what he ultimately decided was that through our consultations, he would utilize the classroom technology more to facilitate peer feedback. When students were working on things in his business class, he would utilize the in-class laptops to be able to peer assess each other. That was an exciting outcome. And finally, Daniel. Daniel was right here in this room, right by those buttons. That's actually where this really great photo is from. I know, it's not a great photo, but it means so much to me. Daniel did a lot of problem solving in engineering, and he found that whiteboards were essential for engaging students like that. Pulling up different students' whiteboards from this interface was really, really difficult. And when he encouraged his students to start getting proud about their problem solving and pushing it out to other boards by pushing these buttons, he was elated. He didn't know that they existed, and there I am showing him them. So this is the power of what the experiential learning method, the experiential learning theoretical framework and action research methods can do. They can have an impact on how faculty utilize technology. So, quick things. Newest instructors received the most hands-on training from me. It allowed them mostly to better understand the podium interface, the document camera, and the wall buttons. More experienced instructors got to review some tools and enjoyed it, but they discussed pedagogical techniques where they were more interested in talking about things like blended or flipping, a little bit more higher order. Two things that came out. Two participants said, I enjoyed that the study was interactive and included help and information about ALC classroom technology. Another participant said, this study prompted me to consider ways I might overcome barriers to adopting discipline-specific technology in my teaching. This meant a lot to me. I was very happy to hear that. It made the research feel like it wasn't just me extrapolating data, but me giving back in that community sense. So what does all of this mean coming to the final throws here? This study and these results fill an important gap in literature in ALCs, namely how faculty use the technology to help students learn. There's a lot of information about student learning in these spaces and about their use of technology, but not so much from the faculty perspective. This is a very, very powerful evidence-based approach from my qualitative data analysis factory that allows faculty developers to research using action research methods. And the methodology is so hands-on, and it provided training for instructors across disciplines, something that many of these classrooms are not available to at other institutions. It helped instructors adopt technology that aligned with their goals, and the results speak to a variety of audiences, including faculty developers, educational technologists, and other practitioners that support these spaces. Furthermore, it helps practitioners understand the real, authentic needs and challenges that instructors have in these spaces, not just from a pedagogical approach. Some implications that this has for future practice. Again, most studies focus on the student learning and not the faculty. It engages instructors with the technology tools when they're using them. We should all be doing that. We should be employing a just-in-time, JIT, type of training method that's responsive and developmental and not transactional. Practitioners should also increase reflective, evidence-based conversations about education, technology, and pedagogy in spaces like this. Remember that triple Venn diagram I mentioned? And I learned, and I will emphasize this a lot, we as folks who are supporting instructors should be incorporating communities of practice so that instructors can share their wisdom about these spaces with each other, not just from a sage on the stage who's telling you what technology tools to use. And this research study provides a furthering of the discussions around active learning spaces in general and future learning space designs across higher education across the country. Future publications and research. One way to make this study better would be to do this over many years or multiple semesters, and to merge it with the impact that the educational technology and the teaching strategies have on the ultimate student learning. I hope to be able to take some of these findings and publish them in a couple of places. The Faculty Development Journal to Improve the Academy has a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful set of literature dedicated to faculty development, and I feel that this study would be a prime article that would support the furthering of that conversation around ed tech and faculty development, particularly around the case studies that I presented at the end. And I'm really wedded to putting together something around my data analysis factor 8. That methodology and that approach to data is something that I feel very strongly about that needs to get out to the literature more broadly. And finally, I'm a learning experience designer now at Boston University, applying these principles every day in my job. I work with instructors now at a large Research 1 institution, helping them to incorporate technology into their teaching and learning. The skills, the knowledge, and the habit of mind that I've learned through my years of training here at UMass Amherst are going forward to help other instructors and ultimately students at another institution. And these research results speak volumes to my commitment to that work. So, here we are. That is my research study and my dissertation. Thank you so much for joining me today on this discussion. We now get to switch gears. Thank you. All right, questions from the committee?
I have a few written down. Well, thank you for your presentation and being willing to go out on a limb and try technology, given sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. So confidence in taking risks is an important skill to have, so I appreciate your presentation and I enjoyed it. My first question I want to start off with something you mentioned in the literature and something you brought up again at the end was the previous studies have focused on student learning and put pedagogy in active learning classrooms. Why is it then important to focus on just the hardware, the technology in these spaces?
The importance of technology is multiple, there are multiple reasons for focusing on technology. Classrooms that are equipped with technology in spaces like this are often depreciating expensive assets. So number one, first and foremost, these are expensive pieces of equipment that depreciate, require maintenance, and need to be reliable to ensure that students use them properly. Focusing on that and understanding that is important. If instructors need these tools or these technologies in space, then we need to know that and maintain a commitment to it. If instructors are challenged, either adopting or through the barriers that they have in their own work that can be overcome, then we should be focusing on the technology as well. The other aspect to focusing on technology is this conundrum that faculty developers who work in my domain with ed tech struggle with all the time. Do you lead with the pedagogy or do you lead with the technology? Today I led with the technology. I led with the 360-degree YouTube live streaming device. Why? Did I think about my backwards design? Did it meet the goal that I wanted? Did I plan it around? No, I led with the technology first. Why? Because it was important to me to do that. So a focus on technology gives you an opportunity to connect in new ways, to do things in a different way, as well as being focused on the pedagogy. So I often think that both go together. But a focus on technology is important for student learning. We know it helps and impacts student learning. There's numerous studies that are cited in my literature about that. But we also want to know how we can help instructors utilize these tools meaningfully. Students report in ECAR, EDUCAUSE's report, that they want instructors to use technology more. They're looking to instructors to guide them on meaningful ways to use it in the class. That's probably the number one reason that I think it's important. Students look for that guidance. We talk about students being digital natives, being fantastic at technology. And a lot of times they are. You kind of also hear this other side, well, maybe students, I couldn't believe that the students didn't know what they were doing. I actually don't believe that's the case. I think what's happening is that the alignment between the technology and the teaching is important. And so when instructors are able to find a real meaningful way, like this tool, being able to digitally whiteboard, then we have an opportunity to improve learning and faculty experience in a learning environment like this.
So often the purpose of using new technologies in classes is to kind of transform teaching and learning. Do you think that the teachers in your study were actually redefining or transforming their teaching with the hardware and the tools in this space? Or was it just the layout of this space that caused them to transform their teaching?
Can you ask that one more time?
Thinking about the purpose of technology is getting teachers to transform their teaching, to do things that were never before possible, to connect students across the world, to create collaborative learning opportunities. Do you think that the teachers in your study were actually transforming and redefining their teaching because of the technologies in the spaces, by using the technology? Or was it just the layout of the classroom that got them to start changing the teaching?
I think the two are combined. I mean, I put them together in that Venn diagram up front. The learning space and the technology are infused from the ground up. These spaces and the technology are built in. Literally, they're hardwired, hard-locked, wires running down below. The space is alive digitally. I can't actually divide the two. I mean, if I could, I would steal all this technology and it would be mine. The learning space is actually a technological space, a digital space. So I think it's hard for an instructor to divorce the two. In fact, I think most instructors think of the technology as something that can help them, ultimately. But I think that instructors struggle at first by feeling a pressure to utilize the technology. I think when you braid that together over the course of a long time, it becomes clear. One of my favorite things that I tell instructors who are sort of overwhelmed by big white screens, shiny objects. Some of my participants talked about their first experiences in spaces like this, like, yeesh, it's a Cadillac. I do try to remind instructors of the opposite. Divorce yourself from the technology, remember the round tables and the rolling chairs. If you think about that and essentialize it, then you can braid in the technology. Do I think it transforms their experience? Yeah. They're able to bring everything they want here quickly. They're able to engage with their students more. And when done properly, the experience of the technology just becomes the experience of the room. So I would say that I believe that the instructors are using the technology to transform their teaching. Somewhat almost hard to experience or to suss out for them on a day-to-day basis, especially over the course of a class or a semester. But I do believe that it actually changes their teaching for the better in a transformative way.
So are you familiar with the SAMR model?
Substitution, augmentation, modification, redefinition, yes.
From what I was reading throughout your dissertation, it was mostly substitution, using digital inking instead of a whiteboard, or the various other examples of having students use devices instead of writing on paper, or use eye clickers instead of raising their hands. Now that I've presented that as mostly substitution, what are your thoughts? Do you think they still were redefining teaching and learning with these technologies?
I didn't use the SAMR method or the SAMR model for assessing how I would define technology. So looking at it from my theoretical framework, from redefining how they feel about their experience and how they engage with the tools, I would say it was redefining. From a technological perspective, the instructors said that they could connect more with their students. They got more peer feedback from their students. They were able to see what their students were doing and get to know their students better. So to me, that's a redefinition. I think that running the study from that perspective, from a substitution, augmentation, modification, again, it's not my framework, I think could provide some evidence to your point. But from a faculty development perspective, which is the foot I led with on this study, I do think that it was definitely transformative for them.
I want to pick up on that, something that you brought up just now, the idea of essentializing the space. Do you think that when you had faculty think about the fact that there are round tables and there are rolling chairs and start there, did you as an observer and as a researcher of this get any sense of what are the essential elements that allow faculty to teach in a student-centered way here, regardless of, if they're using more or less technology? So what is the essentializing of this space that allows somebody to do a student-centered teaching, which is what the goal is of this space?
Yeah, this is one of my favorite topics of conversation. This is a first class service. I mean, I made the airline analogy earlier, and like I said, anyone who knows me in these spaces, I have countless airline analogies. So this is flying first class. Good teaching does not need to happen in a space like this. We know that. In fact, there's many different types of learning environments. I think there's 5 learning environments in this space. Team-based learning classrooms, a flex space with rolling tables and chairs just in general without any technology equipment, a tiered lecture hall, a Harvard case study room, and a large lecture hall that has really cool samurai desks for left and right hand people. Really awesome. So there's a lot of learning environments in here, and when I work with instructors who are adjusting their pedagogy to any learning environment, I actually run a scavenger hunt across this building where instructors would investigate how they could apply active learning pedagogical strategies with this type of chair or that non-movable desk. So essentializing a team-based learning classroom or a space or an active learning classroom like this comes down to a couple of things. Like I mentioned, the round tables, the whiteboards are particularly important. Table connectors are super important, but I mentioned that faculty weren't sure about these. We live in a world of adapters. I don't even want to show you how many adapters are holding that together. I gave you an adapter, one of my many, she's using it to charge the phone. I live with so many adapters, it's not even funny. I can save the day and plug in anything to anything. But the challenge is, if students are bringing in BYOD devices, looking to instructors for support, this one cord doesn't work. My freshman English teacher in high school called it a gazinta. What goes into what? A gazinta. I need a gazinta adapter for everything. In fact, I even joked with Tori about this. I would love to put right here a picture of all the different adapters that are current. Just put it on a nice laminated sheet right on the table and say, these are the adapters you need. And there's a vending machine right there that you can buy one. That's what I think we actually need. We need to have the USB, one cord kind of idea. I spent a lot of time, this is my favorite adapter. This is USB Type-C for folks who need to know. This is the new one cord that solves all problems. There are 9 different specifications for power to this cord, and it will fry your computer if you buy the wrong one. They finally found the right size plug, but it will fry your machine with power. I want to scream every day. I'm an early adopter, so I deal with this, but my colleagues and family all know that this is a real challenge. I do think that the adapters are one of the most essentialized ways that we could bring the most technology with the lowest cost and the most frequent updates that are available. But again, good teaching always comes back to the round tables and these chairs. Finding ways to incorporate things that engage students with one another in any learning environment revolves around those student-centered approaches.
So let me re-ask my question, because you went off a little bit on a tangent, which is fine. But I don't think you got at the heart of my question, which is, if faculty are thinking about their pedagogy when they come in here and they see all of the tools that are potentially available to them, the round table and the rolling chair being part of those tools,
Mhm.
part of that toolkit. If their goal is to establish a student-centered learning environment, did you find something that you could say, okay, of what's in here, these are the essential elements that would do it to allow every faculty member to really reach a student-centered teaching approach? Or did you find that was just varied, as many different sort of essential characteristics as there are individual faculty members who come in here?
I mean, you're asking from my data, not from what I think, what I observed.
What that is kind of.
Mm-hmm. I did observe faculty, particularly the folks who were not new to the space, essentializing it. A lot of my conversations with faculty who were more experienced instructors in this space, they typically removed themselves from the technology conversation pretty quickly and talked a little bit more about their teaching goals, about employing project-based activities that were problem-solving oriented, a quest for new knowledge that even the instructor didn't have. So their essentialized technology or their essentialized observations about what made it work did occur in my data. And it was different than the instructors who were more novice or green, who were sort of kicking the tires of the different technology, sort of bewildered by the pre-configured deterministic A's and B's, 1 through 9, A's and B wall buttons, numbered laptops, who were sort of bewildered by that. The instructors who had spent more time were able to sort of essentialize back to their roots in their experience. So I did see that in my data.
So I have a question about, you talk about the positionality of the researcher,
Yeah.
and you talk a lot about why you're the perfect person for this study because of your background in these rooms and that sort of thing. I was wondering if you could talk about some of the disadvantages that might have come up or some ways that your positionality might have influenced the data in maybe not so positive ways.
I do like my positionality. I'm going to stick by that. So weaknesses in my positionality. I hadn't taught in a space like this before. I think that would be a weakness in my own observation. I came to it from a developmental, pedagogical, and practitioner role. I think that's a slight weakness in my positionality. It allowed me to observe something not from my own bias, though, so I was excited by that. I knew the tools and the resources. I sat and watched and talked with instructors who were going through it, so I was happy with that. It's a different lens, but I think that if you're getting at weaknesses, that could be one of them. I think another challenge with these spaces is the positionality that I had was not being able to engage with the students. So I think that my position put me in a researcher's role in a faculty development orientation that was not as attuned to the student dynamic. And I think that that is a limiting factor in some of the power of the data that I actually have. This study, I often would say, had nothing to do with the students, for rightful reason. I mean, I was examining the instructors, and my bias towards the instructors' techniques and work and teaching was forefront and much more, much stronger than a perspective around the student lens. So I hadn't been attuned to that very much.
And that would be less positionality. I guess some of the things that I'm thinking about are the fact that you were representing TEFT to some extent, or that you were representing some of these student support, these faculty support groups. So you sort of had two roles. So rather than going into a separate campus where you didn't have backgrounds and connections, that could have influenced what
Totally.
people were
That
talking
makes
about.
sense. That's a good point.
What surprised you the most about this, your findings?
Oh, I think the peer support was my favorite finding. The fact that instructors, it's the gold standard in faculty development. I can tell you a million times, I mean, you can tell students a million times if you're teaching them. It's when the faculty talk to other faculty. And I was so thrilled to add that to my research observation protocol, to spend time in the transitional space. That's what that's where I look for my motivation. How can I capture that in my future work at BU? How can I find an opportunity to get peers to communicate? Faculty always tell me they want to hear it from somebody in their discipline. They want to hear it from somebody in their discipline at the same school. Then they don't want to hear it from someone in their discipline. They want to hear it from someone. They want everything. They want all these different variety of opinions about teaching and learning. And when they hear it from each other and it works, and they talk about it working, and they bring it up, and they're excited by that, then that's what I yearn for. So that was probably my most surprising and motivating factor that I found in this.
So, looking at your literature, there was a quote in there describing effective faculty development, stating that effective faculty development programs elicit changes in the way faculty feel about their roles at a university and increase their ability to perform their jobs. Do you think that your research study, your action research study, was effective based on this definition?
Yeah.
Please describe.
How would you like me to describe it?
Do you think that you were able to help these faculty change the way they think about their roles and increase their ability to perform their jobs?
Yeah, I think that faculty transitioned, so faculty reflected a lot. That's what they talked about. They reflected about their teaching, and that's not an opportunity that a lot of faculty have. One of the motivating aspects that I also mentioned was that all of my participants completed this without being paid. All of my participants completed, there was a free prize giveaway, the opportunity for my participants to win an iPad. These faculty did this through their own benevolence and their own dedication to complete this. So I think that actually indicates that they were committed to changing their work and to learning more. Do I think that they were doing a better job? Yeah, when an instructor tells me that I'm using these wall buttons because they make a difference to my students and I'm excited about that, they're doing their job better. They're representing the commitment to teaching and learning that's valuable to them, using a tool that's available to them, and telling other folks about it, telling me about it, telling other faculty in between classes. I do think that builds a better community. We struggle a lot in higher education to have folks come out of their silos. Those of us who work in practitioner-related areas have the opportunity to know that nuance around here, around their campus, or around their community. Faculty are so often subject matter experts, not connected with one another. So doing a better job with each other on this campus, or on a campus where they're teaching, I definitely think improves their work.
So building off of that, if you had to design the ideal faculty development and technology training, considering that even the veteran teachers in here still listed a number of barriers, both intrinsic and extrinsic, and also veteran teachers and new teachers found that there were just tools in here that were hard to use, but they didn't even want to try to use them. How would you envision, based on your findings from your study, an ideal faculty development and technology training?
My favorite faculty development and technology trainings incorporate faculty as students. For example, at BU right now, I'm working with instructors who have to incorporate digital multimedia expression as a macro level general education learning outcome. That's a huge ask for faculty across a campus to be able to employ for their students in their syllabi and in their assignment design. How do I do that? How do I design a faculty development and technology workshop, series of workshops and programs that meet those needs? The first thing I know is to design a faculty development workshop where faculty work together and they experience what it's like to be a student. It's the first thing I did with you. The first thing I did with you was had you break the ice with each other like students. In any place like that, any type of training, I always do that. How transparent I am about that depends on the audience and the context. Faculty development and technology training must situate the instructors as students as best as possible. That's what experiential learning did, that's what action research methodology did, in a just-in-time, authentic, practitioner-driven way. So every workshop I do like that. I just designed an online digital scavenger hunt that had folks recording a video as their final product. You're going to ask your students to record videos in class across the general education curriculum at Boston University. Guess what, faculty? Day 1, hour 1, you're recording a video. Guess what I got? This was the coolest. I don't have a cell phone. There we go. Authentic and genuine. Meeting faculty right where they are. So a faculty development program in education technology must incorporate getting faculty to work together and having them experience the role of being a student in these places, whatever that context is.
What about the other barriers, like lack of time, lack of institutional support, technology they're forced to use, those kind of things? How do you work with those? Or knowing what you know now after doing the research, how do you bring that into designing?
Bringing that forward, I mean, technological determinism, the pressure of bringing iPads in. I am an instructor. My college mandates that I buy a laptop, or have a laptop for all my students. My college mandates that I have iPad training for all of my students. Those are real nuanced challenges around technology. What's the institutional support? How do I work with other colleagues to be able to get site licenses or additional resources? Build a digital multimedia lab, other things. The answer to the faculty is one. The response to other administrative departments and colleagues is another. Where you want to actually build to support that. From a faculty development perspective around institutional support, we offer a great lens of listening and a lot of collegial support across the campus to understand what the needs are. So action research methodologies, these findings are really authentic. They're great to advancing those actual needs. What was another barrier that you mentioned?
Lack of time.
Lack of time. Well, you know, there is only so much time. It's a finite resource. Maximizing the time is the best that you can do. So from the adoption and the barrier perspective, time-saving techniques can help you when you have a lack of time. That's just one way to do it. Another way to do it is to maximize things like between class time for faculty development opportunities. Right now I'm working on a blended learning initiative at BU where I'm going to be helping faculty do their work online as much as possible, transitioning the faculty development pieces where I can to the online realm, to save time, to allow them to do it at their own pace, asynchronously when possible. So maximizing time, being effective and efficient about those learning objectives, and helping them slot it in where possible is great. Any time-saving devices or opportunities can minimize those barriers as well by adopting something that's a different way around the barrier.
I will pick up on Tori's question once again. Thanks for saying that, of course. With this issue of time and faculty development, one of the things you mentioned in your section on time had to do with troubleshooting. So is there some way that you could work into faculty development aspects that would make faculty more comfortable with going ahead and troubleshooting on their own? Are there ways to do that? And the second part of this question is, with your findings about time and the sorts of barriers it presents for faculty in these sorts of classrooms, are there institutional processes or policies that might need to change for using classrooms like this? Two questions at you about time.
I think you're going to have to ask the second one again when I'm done with the first. Faculty troubleshooting. I talk about this a bunch. There's a resilience that I like to see with instructors. I just had it, my colleagues are on the line. I'll wink at you because you know what that means. It's that grit of working through the challenges. I watched an instructor, and I'll just mention it, struggling to adopt an online tool for designing infographics. They didn't have a lot of time. They were working with 2 other instructors on a tight timeline to deliver an assignment by the end of the day. And I just watched that grit. Just that, what tool? I don't like this. Is this a paid? This one's paid. I already designed half of my syllabus based on. Just grit. Troubleshooting. So there's the classroom side, there's the fortitude with software. Instructors, I don't know. I don't know if instructors want to troubleshoot per se. That's sort of a habit of mine. Some instructors like to troubleshoot, and I would be happy to support them if that's the direction and they're inquisitive about it. Other instructors don't want to be bothered with that process, and I think that that's a respectable process for the models that we have in place for classroom support. And in fact, leave it to the professionals. The last thing you want, I mean, I worked as a corporate IT tech guru before. Last thing I want to do is deal with something that you try to troubleshoot yourself. You pull out your hard drive because you think it doesn't work, and you've got a BitLocker encrypted key. We're up a creek for a day and a half, and I'm sorry, you have to catch a flight. So troubleshooting by yourself is something that I let the instructor determine that, and I think it's something that really is up to the folks that need it. I had to call in support for the troubleshooting of my 360 camera. I mean, I had to call in support. Did I try to troubleshoot it? Yes. But I called it a day when I had to call it a day. I had to call in the experts, and I'm proud to say that. I'm totally proud to say that. Thank you all for your stuff. You're super support. Digital Media Lab folks, Digital Media Lab, they're great people. So troubleshooting, I think that there's some ways that you can have folks do that, like rebooting. I talked about it in some of my work, like showing folks the simple troubleshooting. Have you tried turning it off and on again? That's a very famous quote from a very famous TV show, the IT Crowd. Literally that level of troubleshooting, like is it on, is it plugged in? I've done that many times. That level of troubleshooting is sort of the fortitude that I like to look for with instructors. You had a second question though.
So the second question also has to do with time and the idea that transition period between classes is a really important bit of time, but it's only a bit. And then there's, of course, the issue that you discussed where even within the classroom, if something starts to go wrong, you know, a faculty member may feel like, okay, I don't have time to get this to work now, so I'm going to shift gears and keep the flow going.
Right.
So right now, the use of these spaces on this campus is programmed really no differently than a traditional space. Should institutions look at their processes with respect to assigning space differently for different kinds of spaces based on what you learned? And so what would that be?
Airplane analogy, yield management, revenue, yes. Tushes on pushes, as they call it in the airline industry, right? How many people need to sit in these chairs? One thing that came up, and it was this is a bit of an outlier in my data that doesn't really make it into the study, although it's in the data that I analyzed. Instructors did somewhat notice that that this space, again, this is a learning space variable, not a technology variable, that the space, it's not good for lecturing. Sometimes instructors want to lecture. Sometimes instructors want to have a lab. Sometimes the space is actually not good for what they want to do. I even said that early on. I'm lecturing in here. This is the worst thing I could do. But that's the tradition of a dissertation defense, so I'm going to do that and bring you in here because that's authentic to the research study. So I made that decision. But instructors do say that some of the space is not conducive to some of the work that they're doing. One thing that came up, audio-based disciplines, there's no noise isolation in these spaces. There's no place to plug in your headphones. An airplane would have that. Unfortunately, those types of disciplines need this for some of the student-centered approaches, but not for some of the instructional techniques that they're doing. Anything that requires like phonetics or recording, like linguistics, anything that's precise like that, some of the lab sciences, this is not a conducive space for that. So looking at how to change the enrollment management's a broad term, but looking at different ways of scheduling in these spaces to maximize the instructional techniques that would pop with round tables, rolling chairs, whiteboards, LCDs, and a plethora of great technology here is one way to do it. And then allowing them the flexibility to utilize a lecture hall when they're showing a large in-class movie, or utilizing a debate case study room when they want to just have a large group discussion would be great. So unhinging a class for 15 weeks in a space like this, 3 times a week, 9:05 to 9:55, would be great, because an instructor is not going to be doing active learning strategies every single moment of that class. They're just not. So I think that there's some opportunities from a time saving, from an instructional experience perspective that could maximize these learning spaces a little bit better and allow other disciplines as well to fold in, because there's going to be more opportunity for them to slot in to the time slots that are available, made up by the folks that are leaving to go teach somewhere else when they're not doing something that's student-centered.
All right, we'll open it up to the group for 10 to 15 minutes of questions.
I have a question.
Yes, Adina.
I haven't read your dissertation, so you may have answered this in the paperwork, but were there any barriers that you were expecting to see that didn't show up?
Barriers that I was expecting to see that didn't show up. Yeah, some of the, well, this is kind of a funny one. Sorry, it's like chicken and the egg. There's a big barrier called lack of equipment. Lack of equipment. It's kind of been defined in the literature. There's a lack of equipment. We just said that, right? There's a 10% of this technology is available in your classroom. So I sort of didn't expect lack of equipment to come up. But it subtly did come up in some weird ways, especially around things that instructors wanted to bring to class, like a music piano. That's just the one example that's coming up in my mind. You'd think that there wouldn't be a lack of equipment, but when you actually look at this equipment, it's actually kind of a generalist set of equipment. It's really flashy. There's a lot of it, and it does some amazing things, but there's not a lot of very specialized equipment in here. And some of those instructors were sort of yearning for like specialist technology filming equipment for like a lab in STEM, or like a music piano, things like that that kind of came up. So like I didn't expect to hear those, and then I kind of heard them, and I'm like, okay, sure. I mean, they were sort of not the mainstay bread and butter, but that's a variable I expected not to see, and it kind of did come up now and again. Other questions? Carol.
So, I don't know if this was in your dissertation, if you observed this also, but I'm just curious that instructors who became more familiar with what they could do, and that maybe the deeper reach, they actually were able to change the way they were interacting with their students and thinking about the technology and the value of this. Did you see them, and so it's one thing to be in this space, but it's another to learn how to use this and transfer it to spaces where you have less, but you still have. So I'm just wondering if you saw instructors transforming the way they're teaching with what they learned in this space and able to take some of this into other spaces or in classrooms in different ways.
Yeah, that's a great question, and I think it's sort of at the forefront of my mind. Like, how does what you do in this space transform another opportunity you have?
When you don't have this.
When you don't have
but
this.
you have some of this, right?
Oh, and I have a lot of quotes about how, I think once faculty were up in here, they were sort of like, I mean, I didn't put all those quotes in about what they said about the old place they were teaching. They don't want to go back. You know, it came up a little bit. Faculty would say, I really like what I do here, but I didn't hear like, oh, you know, I did hear a little bit of that. Like, I use iClicker audience response systems in my large lecture class, but I don't use them in here because I like students raising their hand. I like to know my students. So maybe it's not what they're doing in here impacting where they're going, but more the other way around, because they're contrasting their prior experience in a more traditional space. So I think that's a powerful lens, but I haven't had the opportunity to really see how an instructor applies flying first class in an active learning classroom like this to another discipline. To the one with the flapping wings, right? Brutal Cessna. That's a great question, though. An analogous question that arises for me now as a faculty developer is how instructors who go from teaching face-to-face to teaching online, and that's sort of the traditional model, but we have more and more instructors who teach online who are now coming to teach face-to-face, which is sort of the opposite. So what you're talking about is sort of is a great lens, that torque between those two things, what you've done with what you've done before, what you're doing with what you've done before. It's a great lens to look at a lot of tech problems. So I don't have a specific answer, but little granulars, like little nuggets in that direction.
We'll take one or two more questions.
And Chang.
Did any of your participants mention that they have formed some of the new so-called pedagogical content knowledge?
TPAC?
Yeah.
Ooh, can you expand on that a little bit more? I'm familiar with the framework you're talking about, but I'm not like super familiar with it.
Yeah, I mean, since this concept is so popular, I mean, it's an integration of how to integrate technology into your pedagogy. So it's like the PCK. So
Yeah.
now it's the integration of information technology into PCK to form that so-called TPAC. So, but did any of your participants mention that they have formed this new knowledge? They don't have to mention this specific term, but did they mention anything that's related to this? Like, I'm really now able to integrate information technology into my teaching. This is a new kind of skill or knowledge.
I don't know if I heard it that way directly. I think some of those aspects, one of the things that this speaks to a limitation of the study is that I didn't examine online technologies or examine mostly classroom hardware. And I think a lot of faculty or a lot of people find technology now very software driven and very online driven through a learning management system like Blackboard or Moodle or Canvas or Sakai, through peer evaluation tools like iPeer or CatMe. And so to have a technological knowledge, I think instructors would probably also want to talk about that area as their proficiency, and that was just an outlier of this study. So I can't say no, but because I didn't investigate those tools and what was happening in the blended or the flipped or the asynchronous side of the class, I can't really ask an instructor based on what they were doing here. Gabriella's used the term, I've actually totally stolen this from her, the fidelity of implementation. The way that they use the classroom hardware. You didn't invent it? No, but you use it all the time, and I love it. It's a great skill set, but I don't think that would fully qualify as somebody who has like pedagogical and technological, like feeling like they've assumed new knowledge in that domain. So I guess it's a question for the future. And a good lens to look at EdTech. I definitely looked down that theoretical framework area, but didn't find it was a great match for this study.
Yeah, so actually, I have another question for you.
Yes.
I noticed that there were some imbalances in your participant group. There were many more males than females, and there were many more STEM than non-STEM. Do you have any ideas about what caused those imbalances? And more importantly, what I'm more curious about is, do you have any thoughts about how those imbalances may have affected your data and the conclusions you're drawing from your data?
Yeah, I think that's a good point. So yeah, most, I think probably 75, maybe 70-75%, I'm just rounding, like a solid 2/3, 3/4 were STEM faculty. Some from a similar cohort of disciplines who share a room. Yeah, I think that had some limiting factors in regards to, like, you know, obviously it's a bias. I also had a ceiling bias with instructors. More of my instructors tended to be the ones that were recruited for the study tended to be more veteran instructors compared to a more minority in the other direction who were newer. So I definitely mentioned that a little bit, and I think it's a limitation. I would have wanted to have balanced that out a little bit more if I were to redo the study. Particularly what that did teach me was the innovation factor of the service. By watching so many instructors who just were addicted to it and talking about why they were addicted to it. I don't know if I would have picked that up had I not had that group. If I just had one or two, I maybe would have found it. So in some ways I sort of was thankful for that bias. In terms of gender or sex balance, you know, I actually don't know what the balance would, or what the population was for the sample that I ended up getting. So I don't know. Yeah, 4 out of 13. I don't know what the ratio was. For the for the actual population of instructors was. I will make a very good comment now. One of my instructors said that this microphone is sexist because it has to clip on a male's pocket. So as it falls off me, I will make that comment now. As we talk about gender and sex. Yeah,